Chosen one, welcome fierce hearts and luminous souls. You're not here by accident. You were drawn here because you're different, because there's something in you that refuses to dim, no matter how dark the world gets. You've been misunderstood, underestimated, and pushed to your limits, but still, you rise. Still, you carry that fire inside you. This space is for you, the ones who love deeply but see clearly, the ones who walk with compassion yet stand with unshakable power. You are not soft, you are sovereign, and the world may not be ready for the force you carry, but that's not your problem. It's your time. You are not here to blend in. You are here to shift the ground beneath your feet, to remind everyone that real light doesn't ask for permission. It commands space. So take a breath. Let your spirit stand tall, because what you are, what you've always been, is not fragile. It's divine. Welcome, anointed ones. Let them see what grace looks like when it refuses to bow. Looking for purpose and peace? Hit subscribe and start the journey. A heart rooted in integrity doesn't waver in the face of disrespect. It doesn't bend for approval or yield to pressure masked as affection. What appears gentle from the outside often carries the weight of unshakable principles within. While many expect constant tolerance from those who radiate warmth, they misjudge the foundation beneath that warmth. It is not softness that fuels compassion. It is a disciplined resolve that knows precisely where to draw the line. The surprise arrives when confrontation is met not with chaos or conflict, but with calm, unwavering certainty. No raised voice, no emotional outburst, just an immovable stance cloaked in grace. Those who confuse empathy for weakness find themselves halted by limits they never anticipated. They sought the comfort of a giving soul, only to collide with the unwavering steel that shields it. There's a kind of authority in quiet refusal that unsettles the unprepared. And in that moment, the truth becomes clear. This is not a heart to be tested. It is a force to be respected. There exists a kind of awareness that doesn't chase deception. It quietly dismantles it. Some minds are crafted to pierce veils without effort, perceiving what lies behind gestures, words, and intentions with unsettling accuracy. Individuals who rely on charm or manipulation often walk into rooms assuming control, but find themselves strangely transparent under the gaze of such clarity. It's not about suspicion or doubt. It's about a deeper rhythm that senses misalignment before it manifests. This perception doesn't need to interrogate or expose. Its mere presence causes masks to slip. There's a shift in the atmosphere when someone recognizes the truth behind unspoken motives, and that recognition unsettles those hiding something. They grow restless, unsure of what's been seen or how much has been understood, yet instinctively aware that something within them has been uncovered. Make your impact eternal. Join now and be a light in someone's darkness. This kind of discernment isn't performed, weaponized, or paraded. It just exists, quietly, like light that reveals what shadows hoped to conceal. For those who depend on illusion, encountering someone who effortlessly sees through them feels like being caught mid-performance with no script left to follow. You are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hidden. Matthew 5:14. Now let me tell you something, child of purpose. Some people walk into a room like a light switch. Quiet, unassuming. But the moment they arrive, everything starts to feel different. Not because they're trying to take the spotlight, not because they raise their voice, but because heaven wired them with a voltage this world can't measure. They don't need applause. They don't chase attention. Why? Because God already stamped approval on their soul before they ever took their first breath. And see, That kind of presence, it doesn't perform. It doesn't beg. It doesn't sway in the winds of opinion. It just is, solid, centered, carried not by ego, but by assignment. It's like stepping into a room where peace moved in before they did. And you better believe, people notice. They may not understand it, but they feel it. Because when you carry divine alignment, you don't have to convince anyone to respect you. Your stillness speaks louder than any sermon. Your peace corrects the atmosphere without saying a word. And those who depend on noise to feel powerful, they don't know what to do when silence holds more authority than their shouting ever could. If your heart overflows with divine love, now is the moment to let it shine. Click the super thank you button on YouTube and give $50 or more to help carry God's light to others. Your gift will bless not only your life, but countless others. You are part of His sacred plan. Your kindness may be the answer to someone's prayer. Share your blessings and honor His kingdom. May His grace guide you always. See, the world teaches us to prove ourselves, push, perform, impress. But heaven teaches us to stand. And when you're rooted in truth, you don't need to rise up and defend yourself every time someone questions your value. The real ones, the chosen ones, they just walk into the room and everything else realigns around them. It's not pride, it's not stubbornness. It's the unshakable rhythm of someone who knows who they are in God. That's the kind of frequency that can't be copied. You can't fake it. You can't manufacture it. And when someone tries to manipulate it, they find themselves hitting a wall they didn't even see coming. People who live off influence don't know what to do with someone they can't influence. And that, my friend, is where your power lives. Let me tell you something else. And listen close, because this is the kind of truth that settles deep. Conviction doesn't need fireworks. It doesn't come in screaming. It doesn't throw punches or flip tables. But it shows up, steady as stone, and plants itself like a tree that refuses to be moved. When something violates what's right, when harm walks through the door or deception tries to plant its seed, this kind of spirit doesn't panic. It doesn't perform. It simply stands. And in that stillness, the whole room takes notice. See, people think power means being loud. They think control comes from being the biggest voice in the room. But spiritual power, real authority, it lives in the soul that refuses to flinch when others fold. There's a certain kind of holiness that doesn't announce itself, but exposes everything around it just by being there. It doesn't need to swing swords to be dangerous. Just standing firm in righteousness can be enough to send the schemes of darkness scattering like dust in a windstorm. And let me be real with you. This isn't about ego. It's not about proving you're better. This is about knowing who sent you. This is about walking in alignment with something greater than applause or titles. This is about being assigned by heaven and not asking permission to exist boldly in your calling. People who live by bending rules and shifting lines, they get nervous around someone who doesn't budge. They're used to negotiating integrity. But when they meet someone who doesn't bend under pressure, someone who doesn't sell truth for convenience, they start to get uncomfortable. That discomfort, that's the fire of conviction working. Make your impact eternal. Join now and be a light in someone's darkness. You don't need to throw stones. You don't need to tear people down. All you have to do is refuse to look away. And when you hold your gaze on what is right, on what is true, every mask starts to slip. Every lie begins to crumble. That's not because of confrontation. That's because of clarity. When God puts His Spirit in someone, He doesn't make them loud. He makes them lasting. Now hear this. You don't need to chase power, because power already lives in you. You don't need to earn a seat at any table. You are the table. You carry the presence. You carry the authority, not because you demand it, but because you were anointed to walk in it. Let the others scramble to be seen. Let the manipulators run their games. You just keep walking in grace and truth. And when the storm rises, you don't have to shout back at the wind. Just stand. That's all. Just stand. Because when you carry light, you don't chase darkness. You reveal it. And when you refuse to be moved, you remind everyone that heaven doesn't tremble when the world throws a tantrum. You're not just another kind spirit. You are a divine disruption, a holy interruption to systems that feed on fear and control. And you're not here to take part. You're here to take ground. So walk tall, chosen one. Walk with calm fire. Let your stillness shake the foundations. Let your presence be the evidence. Let your boundaries speak louder than your words ever could. Because when you walk in the fullness of who God made you to be, the very atmosphere obeys. And those who underestimated you, they'll remember the day they saw what real strength looks like, wrapped in peace, grounded in purpose, and fearless in the face of anything trying to tame it. Amen. There are beings whose stillness unsettles more than rage ever could. In spaces where tension feeds on reactions and emotional volatility is currency, a deep, unwavering calm operates like a silent revolt. This quiet is not born of indifference. It is cultivated through self-mastery, a deliberate refusal to dance to chaos. Those who engineer confusion in order to dominate suddenly find their tactics dissolving in the presence of someone who doesn't flinch, doesn't spiral, doesn't respond on cue. No matter how much noise surrounds them, the inner current remains undisturbed. That serenity becomes a wall they cannot climb, a language they cannot decode. Their provocations fall flat. Their manipulations lose momentum. What they meet is not passivity, but anchored awareness, so grounded it becomes impenetrable. The more they push, the more invisible their influence becomes, until they're left shouting into silence that absorbs nothing. It's not detachment, it's the highest form of control, ownership of the self. And in a world designed to unseat that center, nothing is more threatening than someone who refuses to be moved. If your heart overflows with divine love, now is the moment to let it shine. Click the super thank you button on YouTube and give $50 or more to help carry God's light to others. Your gift will bless not only your life, but countless others. You are part of His sacred plan. Your kindness may be the answer to someone's prayer. Share your blessings and honor His kingdom. May His grace guide you always. Endurance is often misunderstood, especially when cloaked in gentleness. There are spirits forged not in comfort, but in storms, shaped not by ease, but by the pressure of what they've walked through and survived. To outsiders, their softness seems like fragility, but beneath that is something forged, not given. When tested, they do not shatter, they do not retreat. Instead, they meet adversity with a silence that speaks of depth, not defeat. Attempts to provoke or overpower fall short, not because they retaliate, but because they simply don't collapse. There's no grand display, no declaration of strength, only the undeniable presence of someone who has weathered more than they show. Those seeking to unravel them find themselves exhausted, unable to reach the foundation that will not yield. The strength here is not loud or flamboyant. It's quiet, internal, and absolute. It doesn't break because it has already endured what would have broken others. And the realization that nothing external holds sway over that inner core becomes an unsettling mirror for those who rely on control. They thought they'd encounter weakness, but instead they met the kind of power that exists beyond the reach of fear. There are those whose voice doesn't echo loudly, yet it unsettles because of how precisely it lands. Their truth isn't rehearsed or embellished. It emerges from a place that has no tolerance for distortion. Where others wrap their words in comfort or ambiguity, this presence chooses precision over appeasement. And that clarity acts like a quiet current, pulling illusions apart before anyone realizes what's happening. Those who live behind crafted expressions or veiled intentions find themselves exposed, not because they were accused, but because evasion simply doesn't stick in that atmosphere. The truth isn't presented as a challenge, yet it holds a weight that can't be ignored. It resonates in a way that makes masks uncomfortable and self-deceptions fall apart. What makes it even more jarring is the absence of aggression. There's no push, just presence. And that's what unnerves the most. Not a confrontation, but the unmistakable feeling that someone sees exactly what is without needing to speak it twice. The usual defenses, the practice lines, all crumble, not under pressure, but under the steady gaze of what is undeniable. For those who survive by distortion, encountering a truth that doesn't need permission to exist feels like standing in a space where nothing can hide, and that more than anything forces them to confront themselves. There is a form of grace that confuses those who rely on repetition and manipulation. It grants release, not to forget, but to be free. The act is not about erasing what was done, but about refusing to carry its poison any further. This kind of mercy doesn't invite familiar cycles to repeat. It draws a line with dignity that says, "I let go, but I remember." People accustomed to exploiting goodwill often mistake this as weakness, assuming that warmth means they can re-enter the space they once damaged. What they find instead is a closed door framed by composure. There is no animosity, no revenge, just distance laced with wisdom. Forgiveness, in this light, becomes a declaration of autonomy, not surrender. It doesn't come with open arms, but with clear eyes. The past isn't erased, it's acknowledged, and those who caused harm are not offered another script. What unsettles them most is not punishment, but irrelevance. The realization that their influence no longer reaches where it once did. This type of resolve doesn't shout, but it leaves no room for false reconciliation. It is the quietest forms of closure that often carry the loudest truths. The chapter has ended, and no invitation for a sequel will be written. There are individuals whose arrival subtly shifts the rhythm of everything around them. They don't need to assert themselves, yet their presence reconfigures the unspoken currents in a room. Those who usually thrive by bending others to their will, through suggestion, charm, or silent pressure, find their usual techniques suddenly ineffective. It's not that anything is said or done, it's that something is simply different now. The balance they once controlled starts to slip through their fingers, and they can't trace why. There is no resistance to fight, no confrontation to navigate, only an unfamiliar sense that the atmosphere no longer obeys their cues. It is the kind of shift that causes subtle discomfort, a recognition that something grounded has entered the space, and their influence begins to feel small in comparison. Their tactics lose their edge, not because they're confronted, but because they become irrelevant. The usual social mechanics they rely on crumble in the face of this quiet steadiness. They're used to managing people, curating reactions, but now they find themselves responding instead. That reversal is disorienting. What truly unhinges them is realizing they can't replicate or outmaneuver what they can't define. It's not just presence, it's power without performance, and they are left grasping for control in an environment that no longer belongs to them. Some walk through life untouched by the snares that bind others, possessions, promises, or applause. They are not driven by what can be lost, and that very freedom renders them immune to control. In a world where attachment is often used as leverage, their lack of emotional dependence becomes a puzzle that manipulators cannot solve. Their compass points inward, and their steps are guided not by approval or comfort, but by a deeper commitment that transcends fleeting connections. Attempts to corner them through guilt or reward dissolve, because their identity isn't built on external anchors. Those who seek to tether them with emotional hooks find nothing to latch onto. There is no fear to exploit, no longing to weaponize. Their calm detachment isn't cold. It is a conscious release from illusions of permanence. And in that release, they become invincible. Those who try to ensnare them with emotional strings discover they are holding air. The realization that nothing can be dangled to draw them back, that they walk away with nothing and still remain whole, is quietly devastating for those who depended on being needed. The loss of power lies not in being rejected, but in understanding that they never had a hold to begin with. True love, when rooted in clarity, draws a sharp line between openness and self-abandonment. There are hearts that offer kindness with depth and sincerity, but never at the cost of dignity. While others confuse boundless affection with limitless access, this kind of love is discerning. It nourishes, it uplifts, but it does not surrender itself to those who disrespect its source. Many approach with the assumption that softness equals submission, that forgiveness will erase accountability. But instead, they encounter a love that chooses carefully where it lands. Generosity flows, but not blindly. There is expectation in this love, a demand for mutual respect, for shared responsibility. And when that is not met, the warmth withdraws, not out of spite, but from wisdom. Those who thought they could manipulate compassion are left startled by the realization that grace does not equate to tolerance for harm. The strength here lies in the refusal to allow emotional generosity to become a liability. Love in this form becomes a mirror. If it isn't valued, it vanishes. And those who took it for granted learn too late that its boundaries are not suggestions. They are final. What remains is the echo of what they misread, a heart vast enough to care, but wise enough to walk away. There are souls who do not need noise or conflict to make a powerful exit. When they leave, they don't storm out. They simply disappear with resolve, carrying no anger, no lingering need to explain. The decision is already complete within them, and that finality is what unsettles those who expected eternal access. Their absence isn't marked by chaos, it's defined by a kind of clarity that's beyond negotiation. What those left behind fail to grasp is that this wasn't sudden. It was a quiet buildup of awareness, a steady realization that staying would cost more than it's worth. While others cling to what is familiar out of fear or obligation, this kind of spirit answers only to alignment and peace. When something no longer matches the inner truth, they do not hesitate to leave, fully, cleanly, and with no glance over the shoulder. Those who relied on guilt, dependency, or emotional leverage find themselves bewildered, holding onto strings that no longer reach. What stings is not just the departure, it's the calm with which it happens. No arguments, no pleading, just a firm recognition that not everything deserves to be held onto. What was once a source of reassurance now becomes a closed chapter. The realization that presence was a gift, not a guarantee, hits hardest when it is gone without resistance. And the silence that follows, it is not empty. It is filled with the undeniable truth that some connections were only meant to last until growth required distance. That quiet farewell is more lasting than any loud goodbye, because it speaks of someone who knows their worth too deeply to stay where they no longer thrive.